Hi friends, it's Sammy here with Blue Feather Homestead. Welcome back to my channel. I am so glad you're here with me today. Today I'm going to be rendering some lard, and I wanted to bring you along with me for this process. This is a very simple process, super easy, so do not be intimidated, okay? Just don't. There's no reason for it. Super easy. Don't be scared. Let's get started. So this is some fat off of a couple of pigs that we raised here on the homestead. We try not to waste anything in any animal, you know, that we raise for meat, in sort of a way to honor them for feeding us and providing food for our family. We just, you know, try not to waste anything. Now, there are three types of fat that you can render down for lard. There's back fat, there's leaf fat, and there is belly fat. The leaf fat is the fat that's around the kidneys, and that's the most desirable fat to render down for, say, making crust or baking and things like that. The back fat you can use, it's kind of a savory flavor. You can use that for sauteing food, you know, adding it for flavor in foods and things. The belly fat pretty much stays with the bacon. That's, you know, we got bacon made, so this is a fat that the butcher saved for us. We did not butcher these pigs. These went to the market, and this is what they sent back. Actually, this is not the first of what they sent back. I've already done another. I like to do small batches at a time. I'm going to make it in my crock pot. It's just a lot easier to do it that way, in my opinion. We're going to add about 1/4 cup of water into the bottom of the crock pot before we put anything in there. And don't worry, that will cook off. We just want to do that to prevent any scorching of the fat. This looks like mostly back fat that we've got here in these bags. I'm not really sure until I open it up and kind of start cutting into it, you know, which is not the most desirable, you know, lard to have for making crust and things like that, but that's okay. The way I do it and the process that I'm going to show you, we will be able to get that pure white, tasteless lard, you know, at least a jar of it or two. So let me go ahead and get started cutting some of this up. I am going to throw all of this into one pot. This has been in my freezer, and I pulled it out this morning and let it sit on the cabinet for just a little while. You do want it to be somewhat chilled, because it will just become a greasy mess if not. The key here is to cut these in uniform sizes. Really, the smaller the better, to render the most lard. But I'm doing them about, you know, I don't know if that's like about 1/2 inch cubes here, but that's what I'm going for. And then I am just tossing them into the crock. You want to have a really sharp knife while you're doing this, and you definitely don't want it to get too warm, because it'll just become a greasy mess, and it's super dangerous with your sharp knife if it's just, you know, really greasy and slippery. This here, I'm cutting off that meat there. Just the fat is what I want. So I am cutting just every little bit of that fat off. If you don't grow your own pigs, if you don't raise your own pigs, you could go to the local meat market or to your, you know, local grocery store and ask the butcher if they might hold some back for you, or, you know, maybe ask if you could purchase some, and you could probably get it for dirt cheap. And also you could ask them to grind it up for you if you want to do that. A lot of people do grind theirs up. I've always done it this way. This works. It's never failed me. So, you know, I just cut them into, like I said, these 1/2 inch size pieces. The smaller the better, but you just want them to be uniform. I didn't really want to dirty my grinder anyway, but like I said, this has always worked for me, but you could ask them to grind it up for you too. So I have about this much so far, and I'm going to go ahead and turn the crock pot on and get it melting while I'm cutting up the rest of this. Those 3 bags filled up my crock pot perfectly. It's filled up to the top. I'm going to cover this. I have it cooking on low, and I'll check back in about 30 minutes or so and probably give it a really good stir. Now this is what I cut off, and this is the stuff that I did not use, but guess what? It will not go to waste. You can give this to your chickens. You can melt it down and put your bird seed in it and, you know, feed it to the birds. Give it to your pup. It will not go to waste. This is good stuff right here. Okay, it's been about 30 minutes. Let's go ahead and give this a stir. All right. Yeah, see how shiny it is? It's melting. It's coming along just like it's supposed to. You want to cook this low and slow no matter what, because if it scorches, well, that's where the discoloration comes in, and the taste, okay, the flavor. So you want to cook it low and slow. I have my funnel here, and I have just a fine screen. This is what I'm going to filter the lard out with, and this jar is really pretty darn warm. I prefer to use the wide mouth for the largest because it's easier to dig out, but this is warm. I have this actually in my air fryer heating up on like 200 degrees because I didn't want to heat up my whole stove for that, and my microwave hasn't worked like in almost a year. So anyway, I'm going to have this kind of rigged up here on the side like this, and then I'm just going to put my funnel right on top. This has been cooking for about 2 hours now. I've stirred it every 30 minutes. So here's the trick. The lard that we're going to pull off of here is the very first melted lard, right? Now, I'm going to pull this off, and this is going to be the stuff that you can use in your pie crust and things like this. This is a big giant spoon I have, and I love it. My dad gave that to me, like from a, I can't remember, he got it from a restaurant or something. All right, so we're just gonna scoop this in. I'm not worried about the chunks that, you know, gets into my screened area here because I'll just dump that back in. I'll let it cool down just a little bit, but I use these plastic lids, and I will label it first render because I'm going to hopefully get to render this 2 more times. This is the first one. This is going to be the one that I'll use for pie crust and things like that. And then the second and third will be for, you know, deep frying or flavoring dishes and things like that. Now, I've heard that if you want it all to be like this and white, then you would boil, I guess, the equal parts water and lard, and then you'd use a tall stock pot for it, and you boil it about 20 minutes, then you let it cool. The fat sets up to the top, it solidifies at the top, and it says, they said that you can do this a few times, more than once, and then, you know, it'll just be like your really white lard. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and date this. I'm going to put first render, and the date, I'm just going to put 123. And so I'll know what that is. Actually, I will put lard on there. First render lard, 123. And that way, you know, I'll store that in the refrigerator and I'll know what that is. And I forgot to say one thing, that this right here would be the one that you would use if you're going to make soap and things like that. But you probably would use a cheesecloth and really get every little sediment out of there if you're making soap. But I don't plan on making soap with this. All right, I'm working on the second jar here, and I heated that up so that it doesn't bust. This lard is so hot. You just have to be so careful with it. But you know, this second jar here is cooked a little bit longer, and this one I will use for like making my tortillas or tamales. You can make tamales and stuff like that, and you can fry with any of this. You know, this is just going to have a little bit of a more robust flavor than the first jar that I did. And you know, people say that lard is bad for you, and I mean, it's just got such a bad rap. But honestly, I mean, if they're talking about the store-bought lard, then yeah, they're probably correct, because that's the one that, you know, is so highly processed. I mean, it's just horrible for you. They add chemicals to it, you know, they add preservatives and everything else. These are from the pigs that I raised here. I know what they ate. They were happy pigs. So anyway, there's a second one, and I'm going to let this cook down a little bit more, and we'll do a third jar. I got my 3 pints of lard out of there, and I wanted to show you that these will be my cracklins. I've got it up on high now, and I'm going to let those brown up, you know, crisp up just a little bit. I've also reserved a little bit of the rendered lard and put it in my frying pan, because once those brown up and crisp up a little bit, I deep fry them just until golden brown and airy. Okay, and that'll be your cracklins. So I've got this on high, and I'm going to let it cook. This is the first render that we have. I don't know if you can tell how much whiter it is than this one. This is the second, and then this one is the third render. So the first render will be for baking. The second and third will be like savory lard for cooking and frying and things like that. Now you'll want to store this in a cool place. I store mine in the refrigerator. and it lasts all year. If you plan to store it longer, then you can put it in the freezer and freeze it. You can pour those into like a cupcake tin and put them in the little cupcake liners and let them harden up in the fridge, and then you can pop those into the freezer, you know, and they'll last you for a very long time if you put them in the freezer. But this right here will make the very best biscuits. I mean, especially if you use like half butter, you know, real butter, okay, not the fake stuff with chemicals or anything like that. I wanted to let you know also that this is the same process if you have beef tallow, okay? If you have beef tallow, you do exactly the same thing as we did. You will just scoop this out as it's melting down, the first one, you know, as it's melting down, just scoop it out so that it will stay that pretty white color. And this one will have the least piggy flavor. This one probably has a little bit, and that one probably has quite a bit, because that was the last, pretty much the last one that I pulled out. I always save my used lids and wash them, and I just keep them. So I've used them for this. There's absolutely no reason to can this stuff, okay? It doesn't need to be pressure canned or anything like that. So these are your cracklins. You can either just, you know, let them crunch up like this in your crock pot, like I've got going here. And you can put those in your cornbread or on top of your salad, whatever you want to do. But I'm going to go ahead and let those finish up in the crock pot. And then I was going to turn you around here and show you that these are the ones that I deep fried. And these are, I mean, they're crunchy, really crunchy, and they taste like bacon bits, to me anyway. Kind of just tastes like, you know, fried bacon bits. I sure do hope that you get an opportunity to do this. This is just really so much better for you than, you know, shortening that you buy at the store, you know, that is just absolutely totally processed. It is full of chemicals. No bueno. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Have a great evening, and we will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.